Hi everyone. A lot of people are asking me, ma'am, I'm just starting my preparation. Where do I begin? How do I start my preparation? So I'm here to answer all of those questions. If you're starting in the month of August or at the end of July, how do you actually begin? So in this video, I'll explain exactly how to crack CAT in just 4 months. So let's get started. We'll go directly in. I want you to get some ideas clear in your mind so that you know, okay, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to avoid doing. These are the mistakes I should not be doing. So let us first understand what exactly should be your mindset going into CAT preparation. See, consider that there are, you have three sections, okay? You have VARC, you have DILR, and you have QA. They come in this order, okay? Here you have how many questions? You have 24 questions, of which 8 are VA questions and 16 are RC questions. In DILR, you have 5 sets generally. Some sets, 3 sets are of 4 questions each, 2 sets are of 5 questions each. You have 22 questions overall. In QA also you have 22 questions. They are a mix of arithmetic, geometry, like algebra, everything combined. There are 22 questions. Now, how should you actually approach each of these sections? When it comes to VARC, you're expected to solve most of the questions. A good student attempts 20 plus questions when it comes to VARC. Even a average student attempts at least 16 questions in VARC. So here you are expected to do, like, most of the questions should be attempted. So here you are not expected to leave any questions. In DILR, there are 5 sets. A good student will solve anywhere between 2 to 3 sets. An exceptional student will solve between 3 to 4 sets. Why do I say 2 to 3, 3 to 4? If it's a difficult year, consider CAT 2025 or CAT 2023, then 2 sets are sufficient. 2 sets solved accurately will be sufficient. You will not get time to solve the third set. On the other hand, if it is CAT 2024, then 3 sets are needed because CAT 2024 difficulty level was on the lower side. Now, given that you have to do 3 sets out of 5 or 2 sets out of 5, what exactly should be your mindset? Here, you should not do everything, but you have to choose what you do, and whatever you do, you have to do well. In QA, out of the 22 questions, how many are you expected to solve? In a normal year, okay, when the difficulty level is average, you're expected to solve somewhere around 14 to 16 of them. This is, I'm talking about people who are 99 percentile in QA, will solve 14 to 16 of them, and they should get it. Most of the questions that they solve should be right. 1 or 2 mistakes can be there, but they should not make a lot of mistakes. Then you'll get to 99 percentile comfortably. In fact, 99.5, 99.9 percentile. So here, the number of questions that you have to solve is not great. If you just have to get to 95 percentile, even I would say 8 questions would be sufficient in most years to get to 95 percentile. Now, then you have to basically say, out of 22 questions, I need to solve somewhere between 8 to 10 questions to do okay, and I have to solve between 12 to 14 questions to do well, and between 14 to 16 questions to do very well. Then what exactly am I supposed to do? I'm not supposed to even solve all of the 22 questions. Very few people actually solve all 22 questions. Most of the students solve somewhere between 12 to 16 questions. This is for good students. So when I say that, okay, you're not going to solve all of the questions, either in LRDI or in QA, the question becomes that, okay, if I don't have to solve all of the questions, then it means that I can choose. And if I can choose, that means that I do not need to cover the entire syllabus. So then you have to start thinking that, okay, if I don't have to cover the entire syllabus, what does it mean to my preparation? So what it means to your preparation is that you have to prioritize. You have to first do everything which has highest weightage. There'll be many topics will have small weightage, a very small chance of coming in the actual CAT. And you might feel, though, if it actually comes, then I should be able to solve it. But I would say that for all those small topics, okay, given the fact that there is a very small chance that it will come, I would say that it makes no sense to actually put in a lot of effort to, like, learn those topics, because that effort, that time might be better utilized for something which has a higher likelihood of coming, a higher chance of coming. So because of that, I would say that you have to prioritize your preparation. You have to make sure that the things which have the highest weightage, you do very well, you do exceptionally. Because out of these 22 questions, the topics that have highest weightage will also be come more number of times. Out of the 8-10 questions that you attempt, those will be the bulk of the questions, and therefore you have to be like a master of few topics. You should be basically an expert in few topics, And for others, you should be at least beginner level, but you need not master everything, and you should definitely not be a beginner at everything. A jack of all trades and a master of none is not a good situation over here. You should master some things because you're not going to attempt everything. So even in LRDI as well as quant, you should master some things. You should be very good at arithmetic. You should be very good at algebra or geometry. You should be very good at logarithms. You need not touch the entire portion. You need not complete the entire portion, but whatever you touch, you have to do very well in it. Okay. This is the first thing that you have to, that mindset shift has to be there. Okay. Now, how do you prioritize? So in this particular slide, I have put the order of weightage. What is the most important part of each section and in what order you should go given the most important part. I've also considered a second factor, which is difficulty level, where if something is very difficult, I've actually given it lower priority because it will take more time for you to master. So whatever is at the top is basically things that are easy to master and are higher weightage. Whatever is at the bottom is those which have lower weightage and difficult to master. So starting at the top, our most important thing in quant is arithmetic. See, arithmetic, you will get 5 to 7 questions. And 5 to 7 questions, there will be 1 or 2 difficult questions in it, which you have to leave. So there'll be like 3 to 5 questions. Mostly 4 or 5 questions are there from arithmetic, which are on the easy to moderate side, which you should absolutely do in your first run through of the section. You should do those 4 to 6 questions, because that means that you're halfway there to your target. If your target is say like 10 questions, 12 questions, that target will be 50% achieved by the easy moderate questions of arithmetic alone. So the first thing that you have to do is basically arithmetic. You should be a complete expert in all subjects in arithmetic. What is there in arithmetic? Arithmetic consists of averages, ratio and proportion, percentages, mixtures and solutions, profit, loss and discount, compound interest, simple interest, the time, speed, distance, time and work. So there are a lot of topics. All of them basically are come under the header of arithmetic, and all of these generally tend to be easier questions in the sense that if you give them time, you will solve it. Sometimes there'll be time sinks. Okay, it will take so much time to solve, but they'll be solvable. Sometimes some questions are there from geometry where you're like, you don't know how to actually even proceed with it. That won't happen with arithmetic. The harder questions of arithmetic take more time but are solvable. Okay, so the first priority you should always give is for completing arithmetic. Then what I did is split algebra. This part of algebra, quadratic and linear equations, are actually easier to master. There are limited number of things to do there. They are easier and they come also. Quadratic comes, at least one question of quadratic will come, and quadratic also comes as part of arithmetic, where you have like say equations will be given for time, speed, distance or time and work, which essentially end up being quadratic equations. So knowing how to solve quadratic equations or knowing basic properties of quadratic equations definitely helps. So these are the easier parts of algebra which you should be doing next. The other parts of algebra is inequalities, which a lot of people struggle with. If you're an engineer or if you're somebody who is naturally gifted with maths, you can do it together and you won't struggle. But if you're somebody who struggles with quant, the thing with inequalities is that a lot of people can't visualize inequalities. They can understand what quadratic equations are, they can understand linear equations, but with inequalities, they don't understand what is happening. So that is why, because it is a tougher thing, I've put it slightly down on the list. There are easier things that you could do before inequalities. So next you can do logarithms. Why did I put logarithms over here? The reason why I put logarithms over here is these two things, you see, quadratic and logarithms are generally asked in conjunction with each other. They are asked together where there is a log equation which has a polynomial or a quadratic equation in it. Third, indices, logarithms are very closely related, and having a good idea of all of them helps you in many of the algebra questions. There's another reason why I have put it up over here is because it responds very well to hard work. Not everything responds well to hard work. Some part of quant is like ability to think. Okay, it is like God-given gift where sometimes a lot of people, irrespective of how much hard work they put in PNC, they are not able to understand what is going on in PNC. It's not something which is intuitive to them. But logarithms is not like that. Logarithms has 11 formulae. You rectify the formula, you solve the questions, you solve all questions of logarithms multiple times. That is something that will definitely come with hard work. And that is why I have kept it over here, because it is something that you can expect 1 to 3 questions from logarithms. 1 to 3 are like is a wide range, But there have been years where there have been 3 questions from logarithms. There have been years there is at least 1 question from logarithms, and it responds a lot to hard work. It is not a difficult topic. If you put in the hard work, you will definitely get the marks out of it. So these 3, arithmetic, algebra, and logarithms, together should be the first pass of your attempt. Whatever is the first pass through the quant section, when you're going through the 22 questions, try to see whatever are the easy arithmetic questions. There'll be some back-breaking arithmetic questions, leave them because they will take too much time. Any linear equations questions you should solve, any quadratic equations question you should solve, and any log question you should solve. This should be your first pass, and you should be an expert in this. Not okay, you should be an expert in these areas. Then the next in that list, I would say, is geometry. Geometry is tough to master because geometry has a lot of theory, a lot of formulas, and you can't really remember which formula to use where. It doesn't come. It generally comes after solving thousands of questions. You realize then in your mind there are connections start forming that, okay, if angle bisector is given, then this theorem has to be used. If median is given, Apollonius theorem has to be used. Sometimes you can remember all of those things, but sometimes the connection just doesn't form. So geometry requires a lot of hard work, but it is tricky. But it has 3 to 5 questions. So because of the higher weightage, I have put it up the list, but it is something which requires a lot of effort. Then you have algebra inequalities, again a tougher part. You will get 1 to 2 questions from inequalities, generally 1. But I would say that because it is tougher, because it is harder, if you are struggling a lot with inequalities, leave it. Focus more on geometry because 3 questions come from there. Inequalities, 1 question comes from there. So if you're going to put a lot of hard work, where should you put? You should put it more in geometry rather than in inequalities. Then you come with number systems. Number systems are of 2 types, okay? The questions that come from it are of 2 types. There are the easy questions, which are based on HCF, LCM, which are based on divisibility rules. They actually come very often. Then there are harder questions which are on remainder theorems. They come very rarely. Remainder theory comes rarely, does not come often. And this is actually the harder part of number systems. You know what a lot of students actually spend most of their time on in number systems? On remainder theorems. They actually ignore the easy part thinking that ye to ho jayega. But questions actually come from there. Questions rarely come from remainder theory. It is harder, it is difficult, it will take up more of your time, and it is less likely to come. So it makes no sense to spend a lot of time learning remainder theorems. Remainder theorems will be useful in XAT. You should definitely do it after CAT is over. But in CAT, for CAT preparation, which is the more important thing that you have to look at, the easy part of number systems, which is HCF, LCM based problems, and problems based on divisibility of numbers, problems based on number theory, basic number theory of where tens or ones digit is swapped, etc. Those basic divisibility questions and number theory questions are what you should look at more. Cyclicity of factors, basic questions like that, those come much more. Factors, number of factors, sum of factors, these are basic concepts. Questions tend to come on these basic concepts rather than on like Wilson's theorem and Fermat's theorem. Don't spend too much time on remainder theorems. Spend more time on the basic concepts of number systems. Again, I would say that number systems is something that I personally feel is easy to master, easy to do well, and it should be something that you should actually put a lot of effort in. This part, I would say, is that something that you should put in. This is tier 2, is that you need not become an expert in it, but you should put in enough effort that you actually have confidence that I'll be able to solve questions from this topic. Then comes functions, combinatorics, and progressions and series. Some people might feel that, okay, why have I put progressions and series over here? I'll tell you why, okay? In all my years of like giving the CAT exam, I have never attempted the progressions and series question in the first pass. The reason why I don't attempt progressions and series questions in the first pass is because they generally are long questions. They take a minimum of 4 to 5 minutes to solve. So in the first pass, it never will happen that I will actually solve a progressions and series question. Progressions and series come every year. 2 questions come, 1 to 2 questions come. It is a necessary skill. You should know what is AP, you should know what is GP. They sometimes come in quant-based LRs also. So it sometimes appears in LRDI also. So you should know the basics of progressions and series very well. But the questions that come from this topic are difficult. The questions that come from combinatorics are easy for some. For some, finding probability is not difficult. For a lot of people who actually play card games, okay, if you play poker, you know exactly the concepts of probability. It will not be difficult for you to do combinatorics. But for some people, it is very counterintuitive. So all of this you have to change based on what is your individual strength and what is your individual weakness. But generally, I have seen from students that combinatorics is something that they struggle with. And again, combinatorics, the weightage is actually very low. Functions, the weightage is there, but again, it tends to be on the harder side. I would say all of these don't ignore. You should know it properly. You should know the basic questions of it properly. You should be able to solve the easy to moderate questions of it properly. You need not spend too much time over here, but you should spend some time over there. So I have basically split up the quant section into 3 tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The tier 1 you should do obsessively. You should solve so many questions that you should know that I'm an expert in this. The tier 2 deserves your attention. You should give like a lot of effort, lot of time for that, but you will not solve this in the first run through. If there's an easy question of geometry or easy question of inequalities, don't leave it. But if you feel that this is a difficult question, don't go for it in the first pass. The last one, again, depends on your personal strengths and weaknesses. But I would say that given the effort and return ratio, effort to the marks ratio that is there, I would say this is the third priority. You should know the basics of it. You should be able to solve easy questions of it. But do not kill yourself for something which has lower weightage, difficult to answer questions, and which you are unlikely to do in the first pass. Okay. First pass basically means that when you're running through a section, right, you are not supposed to do everything sequentially. You're supposed to go through each of the questions, look at the question and say that, can I solve this under 3 minutes? If the answer is yes, solve it. Otherwise, go to the next question. This is the first pass logic, where you first target all the easy questions of the section. Then the second pass is after all the easy questions have been gone through. Then you go again and say that, can I solve this under 5 minutes? Do I know how to solve it? And only then solve it. This ensures that you do not leave any easy question from the section. You do not waste time on the harder questions and then ignore the easy questions that were there. Okay, this is basically the idea, that you do not solve questions sequentially, but rather pass through all the questions and see which ones are easy, and only in the first pass solve only the easy questions. Let's come to verbal. Now in verbal, see, the expectation is that I expect all of my students to do 3 RCs plus 8 VA questions, or 4 RCs plus 4 VA questions. The reason why I say that you have to do a lot of attempt in VRC is because a lot of people, when they have no idea about VRC also, right, they just go and show up to the exam and they just answer all the questions based on gut feel. And many times they actually get it right. So generally, I feel that in VRC, if you're under attempting, it's a bad strategy. A lot of people who do not have the baggage of okay, I'm getting low marks in VRC, and they get into this self-doubt spiral where they second guess every question and every answer that they are selecting. A lot of people who have less preparation are sometimes more confident of their VRC questions and tend to outperform because they mark everything. For all 24 questions, they'll mark some answer and come. In quant and LRD, it's not possible to solve all questions. But in VRC, it is possible to solve all questions. Especially if you are a newbie, you will actually do better in VRC than not. So here I want you to know that under attempting in VRC is a bad strategy, particularly if the VRC of that year turns out to be easy. Then it's a terrible strategy. What will happen? The newbie will actually outperform you because he will have attempted everything. He's likely to get the answers correct also because it's an easy paper. And then after all your thinking and strategy and hard work, you'll actually lag behind. So you should say that I'll do at least 20 questions out of 24. You can choose between basically leaving either 1 RC or leaving 4 VA questions. I personally would say that leave 4 VA questions, do all 4 RCs and do 4 VA questions. The VA questions are the 2 para summaries and the 2 para completions. I would suggest leave the OC para jumbles and the theta para jumbles if you have to leave at all, because accuracy over there is generally low for everybody. If I consider, you can see the previous year's papers and you can see how many percentage of people got the answer right. See the percentage of correct answers for theta para jumbles. Okay, theta para jumbles, slot 1, CAT 2025. There were 1 lakh people. 80-90,000 people took that entire slot. Of that, I think 60-70% uploaded their mark sheet on Kraku. Not one person got a theta para jumble. In that entire slot, not one person got the answer right. Now, if 40-50,000 people Not one person gets the theta parajumble right. What can you say? It's a waste of time. It's a, I will say that because it is a theta type in the answer type question, you should put in some value. But generally, these two, OC parajumbles, theta parajumbles, give the worst return on investment. Give the worst number of marks for the amount of time that you're putting. This gives the best return. This gives a decent return. So I would always say that make these 3 your priority. Put something over here. Don't leave it empty because there is no negative marking for theta parajumbles and OC parajumbles. But they should clearly be second priority. You should make sure that you do these parts properly and these parts put something. Okay. This is what I would say for verbal. Now coming to LRDI. See, the problem with LRDI is that there is no syllabus. Okay. It's not that like quant we have been given. Okay. In quant we are given. It's arithmetic, algebra, geometry, number systems. The syllabus is given. But there's no syllabus for LRDI. It's just puzzles and like charts, tables. So you have to basically look at what has happened, what has come in the previous year's papers. So we looked at all the previous year's papers and we see that generally the type of sets that come can be put in these boxes, either of these. Of these kind of LRDI sets also, there are 4 that come very, very often. Which are these 4? Arrangements, puzzles, tables, charts. Every year, every single year, at least 2 out of the 5 belong to this. Which means that just if you get these right, you will get 2 out of the 5 sets. Again, there can be a difficult arrangement set, a difficult table set, difficult chart set. So I'm not saying don't ignore all of this. But I'm just saying that this should be your first priority. This is what I call tier 1 part. This you should be an expert in. You should solve a lot of questions from arrangements, puzzles, tables, charts. Just remember, these 4 are your first priority, the most important part of your syllabus. You should solve a lot of tables, charts, puzzles, arrangements. In our puzzles, I'll say Einstein puzzles, which are a form of arrangement only. They are very closely related to arrangement. Enumeration puzzles, these are tougher. You have to consider all the cases that are there. You have to enumerate cases. Generally, people make a mistake in enumeration puzzles because they are not meticulous. They don't list down all the cases and then they end up making a mistake. And then there are quant puzzles which require quantitative concepts. So the quantitative concepts could be based on progressions and series, where things are in an AP or things are in a GP, or it is based on divisibility of factors, or it is based on permutations and combinations. Many things come over here, okay? But you have to remember, all of these are essentially puzzles. A lot of puzzles come every single year and you have to practice the different types of puzzles that come. This should be your tier 1 priority. Then comes to tier 2 priority, basically sets that come more frequently than the others. Sets in Venn diagrams, base sets. So set theory basically based on median, mean, mode comes quite often. Venn diagrams, 4-set Venn diagrams or Venn diagrams minima maxima comes. You also have set theory where you have segregation of information, where you have to split information into subclasses. Even that comes pretty often. Quant based DI over here, when you have quant based LR, it's logical reasoning based set. Here quant based DI, you will have a table where you have to fill it based on some quantitative rules. Games and tournaments is a tough type. It's generally a very intimidating set. But if you follow the representation formats carefully, this is something that comes often and can be done. Scheduling is, I feel, one of my favorite sets because scheduling is something that you can definitely solve. There are very few sets that I can say I'll definitely solve, but scheduling I know I can definitely solve. The only pain is that it will take some time. Okay, it will take me 15 minutes to solve, but I'm sure 100% that I'll solve scheduling. So because of that, I feel that these are the tier 2 priority. You should be decent in these tier 2 sets. Then comes the 2D and 3D puzzles. 3D rarely comes. 2D puzzles come quite often. Team selection, roots and networks, miscellaneous. Anything that is not there, like truth, liar, truth and liar and alternator kind of thing. Or there are many other smaller things that sometimes come, like Erdos number, but very rarely. Okay, these are basically those one-off sets which might come, but generally will not come. These are the lowest priority, because there is firstly a lower chance of them coming, and secondly what happens is that when they do come also, 2D puzzles are fine. 2D puzzles generally tend to be solved very easily, but this one, team selection, takes a lot of time to solve. It's not difficult, it's just time consuming. Roots and networks takes a lot of time to solve. You have to consider every single route, every single possible route that somebody has to take, and you have to calculate costs, a lot of calculation, lot of it's just a headache at times. So because of that, because of the low possibility of coming, plus the difficulty of solving it and the time consuming nature of it, I have put it as tier 3. So what I would say is that tier 1, you should be an expert. Tier 2, you should be decent. Tier 3, you should be familiar. Okay. This should be your priority order when it comes to LRDI sets. Now let's go. This is about what you should prioritize. Now let's go to the mindset change that you have to make. So as I mentioned that you don't have to do all 22 questions in quant. Similarly, you don't have to do all 5 sets in LRDI. So it tells you that there has to be a complete mindset change when it comes to this exam as compared to the previous exams that you have done. So till now, what have you done? For example, in 12th standard, can you say that I'll not do a particular chapter? No, you have to do every chapter because you're expected to solve all questions. But that is not the case here. So that basically means that you should not focus on completing syllabus. There are a lot of people who do this. Okay, I have to complete syllabus. I have to make sure that I don't miss a formula. I should know all the formulas. But generally, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, all that one-off formulas that you miss. Okay, for example, on the like suppose you forgot Brahmagupta's formula or something like that. Doesn't matter. Very rarely will it come. But what is more important is that you have depth in whatever you do. Don't focus on covering syllabus because covering syllabus will do nothing for you. If you go deep into whatever parts that you have chosen, that this is my strong part, this is the areas of strength, you have to go deep into those areas of strength. Whichever things that I told you that you have to be an expert in it, you have to solve lots of questions in it. This is a mistake that I made in the first year that I attempted CAT, right? I attempted CAT in 2007 and in 2008. In 2007, I was a newbie. I was a fresher. I was in the last year of my, I was in the 4th year of my college, and I didn't have any understanding or exposure of how to prepare for CAT. So what I was doing before the CAT day was that I was like looking at all the formulas. I was looking at all the theory because that is what we had been taught till now. No, you make sure that you complete the syllabus, but that is completely useless because what you had to actually do is solve a lot of questions. The next year, when I gave CAT 2008, I was in a completely different zone. There, I had just locked myself up for the week before CAT, and I was just solving a lot of questions. I just like made sure that I was not revising, I was not looking at concepts, nothing of that sort. I was just solving questions from the areas that were important. The more you solve, okay, the deeper you go into a particular concept, the more confidence that you will get. And the more confidence you have just before CAT, the more marks you will score. In CAT 2007, I scored 99.31 because I focused on the wrong things. When I focused on the right things of solving a lot of questions, getting into the zone that I know how to solve this, getting that confidence that I'm very good at this, that basically made the difference. And in 2008, I scored 99.91. After that, I scored more. But the idea remains the same. Basically, that the more questions you solve, the more momentum you have, just before CAT, the better you will score. If you break your momentum by stopping the question solving, you will have lesser score. You should have a lot of momentum just before CAT because you should like solve crazily just before CAT. Just solve like for 3-4 hours, just sit down and solve a lot of questions because depth and number of questions solved matters much more than syllabus coverage. Okay, let's go to the next part. But before we go, a reminder for all those who are looking for a like one-stop way of preparing for CAT. We have a batch crash course starting on Monday. So if you're looking for one way that, okay, I'll do this and everything will be taken care of, take a look at our crash course. We have everything that you need. We'll give you the schedule, that you follow this schedule. You attend these live sessions, see these videos, you solve these questions, you take these mocks in sections. We'll make sure that you're completely prepared without you having to think, what should I be doing? You having to like waste your time on thinking, okay, what should I be doing now and what should I be doing next is a waste of your time. So let us do that thinking for you. Every single day we'll tell you that, okay, from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. there is a live class in which the topic will be taught to you. You along with us will be solving a lot of questions. So you will get confidence of solving a particular topic. There will be a day-wise schedule. So for that schedule, you will be told that, okay, today's live session is on this particular topic. This is the video for it. These are the pre-readings for it. Make sure that you see this video before the live session. So the concept video plus the live session will make sure that your concepts are properly understood. Plus you have practice of solving questions from that topic. In addition to that, we have weekly revision and we have one-on-one mentorship. Every single person has their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their own challenges and hurdles. You need somebody who you can talk to and ask that, okay, how do I actually get over this issue? I'm not able to improve my mock score in this section. So for that, we have mentors. You can book a slot with a mentor. They will call you over Zoom or Google Meet, and then they will talk to you in detail. They will tell you exactly, okay, this is the problem that you're facing, what you can do to actually overcome it. So here, basically, you will have that one person whom you can tell your issues, your problems, and get the help that you need to actually resolve whatever is holding you back. So we have all of this. In addition to that, we have an excellent question bank. Our study room is one of the, I think, the best study rooms that is there, because it is gamified, it is adaptive, which means that you keep getting questions based on your difficulty level. If you make progress in a particular section, you will get harder questions from that section. If you're struggling in a section, you will get easier questions from that section till you actually gain the strength to go to the harder part. So this is one of the best features that we have for Kraku. So do check out our course. We'll make sure that you're completely prepared for CAT. Now let's go to the course material. So how should you actually look at the process of preparation? See, in CAT, the part that you have to remember is that for example, if you consider 10th standard, 12th standard, how did you actually prepare for it? You had to read, you had to mug up, you had to do ratta, and you had to vomit it on the exam day. So all of the preparation was learning. But in CAT, it's not a knowledge-based exam. It's a skill-based exam, which means that learning by hurting has a very small role to play. You need to know formulas, you need to know theorems, but that alone will do nothing for the actual, for you to actually crack CAT, it will play no role. So if I say that there are three parts of it, learning, practice, and test, the learning part of it is just like 20% of it. It will help you solve some questions, very easy questions, but it will not help you crack most of the harder questions. Why? Because it's a skill-based exam. You have to develop the skill of solving questions. You have to solve thousands of questions before you can solve a question in the exam environment. Because the exam environment is a pressure cooker. You're going to feel like the adrenaline will be pumping. Your head will not be clear. You will not be able to think clearly. To be able to solve questions there, you need a lot of confidence in yourself, and that will only come if you have solved thousands of questions. So firstly, you have to learn all the concepts. So you attend the live sessions, you see the concept videos, the batch tasks that are there. The pre-readings of the live sessions are basically the batch tasks. See this, attend the live sessions, your conceptual coverage is done. Then comes the harder part. You have to practice every day. Every single day, you should be trying to practice from the study room. But suppose you don't have every single day, you might not get time to actually take questions and practice from the study room. At the very basic, you should solve the daily target. So what is the daily target? The daily target are basically 3 tests, one from Quant, one from LRDI, and one from VARC section. We try to ensure that you do at least some question solving every single day. So the daily target is like a 5-question Quant question set, one LRDI set, one VA, either 5 questions VA questions, or one RC. What we are ensuring through this is that you make sure that you have the daily habit of solving. If you don't have the daily habit of solving, no, it's not good. Because what will happen is that you will just spend a lot of time watching videos, watching me solve or watching Maruti solve, and that will not help you learn how to solve yourself. So this learn part has to be supplemented with the practice part. Every day, if you don't have time to go to the study room and practice questions, at the very least, make sure that you're very religious about the daily target. Make sure that you do daily target every single day without fail. I spoke to a lot of 99.99 percentilers and 100 percentilers. They were very particular with the daily target. In fact, we spoke to one of the 100 percentilers and he said that no matter how tough the day was, even if he had to start the daily target at 11 o'clock, he would do it because he was basically fanatic about it. That he has to do this every single day, no matter how tough the day has been. And you should be that determined about your practice, that no matter what happens, some days will be tougher, but no matter what happens, I will not skip the daily target. Every single day, I'll do those 3 tests. Those 3 tests are basically 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes of the day. These 45 minutes, at least I will give every single day. Then is the last part, the most ignored part of your preparation, which is the test part. So in test, what is test? Test basically means that, okay, you have learned the concept, you know how to solve the questions. But then the question remains that, can you do that under time pressure? Can you do that in the exam environment? You might say that, okay, if I know how to solve the question, I'll solve it in the exam also. What's the big deal? But there is a big shift between being able to solve a question in a small time test and being able to solve it in the mock. Firstly, there is stamina, okay? People feel that, okay, writing a test for 2 hours is not much. 2 hours is a small test. And for a lot of people who actually give like JE and all, it's a small test. 2 hours test is not that big. But 2 hours are like, you will be like completely drained at the end of 2 hours. Because that entire 2 hours, firstly, there'll be adrenaline. You will be at a very like super tense 2 hours. Because of that, a lot of students actually underperform in the third section, which is the quant section. Because after a mentally draining VARC and after a further mentally draining LRDI section, they just don't have the stamina to actually sit for the quant section. They are not able to do well in the quant section. Even if they know everything, they are not able to solve it. So you have to build a stamina. And to build a stamina, you have to take a lot of mocks. You have to be able to actually know how to like withstand that pressure, right? How do you learn to withstand the pressure? You have to take a lot of mocks to do that. And you should also take sectionals. What are sectionals? Basically, instead of giving a full 2-hour mock, you can give 40-minute test for each of the sections. Why should you take sectional tests? See, basically for every student, there'll be one section which will be the section that they're weakest in. So for example, there are some students who come from humanities background who are very good at like say VARC. They manage even in LRDI, but they struggle in quant. On the other hand, there are engineers who are very good at quant, who do well in LRDI also, but who struggle in VARC section. If you know that I'm weak in one section, you should take a lot more effort, put a lot more effort in that section. You should take a lot more practice of that section. So for that, we have sectionals. So whatever is the section that you are weak in, you should attempt all of them as sectionals. You should, like, there are 15 sectionals. There are 20 mocks plus 5 head start mocks. So there are 25 mocks on Krakow's platforms plus 15 sectionals. You should be taking all of these 25 mocks plus these 15 sectionals for whichever like section is weakest for you. You should be taking sectionals from that particular section. You should be taking all of those sections because you need extra help in that section. Okay. So these are the 3 pillars. This is 20%. Don't spend too much time. Don't spend 100% of your time on learning because it will be a waste. This is your remaining 60%. Practice like crazy. Practice like your life depends on it. And this is the remaining 20%. Do this every weekend religiously. Do it every Saturday or Sunday. And the remaining part, okay, suppose I take a mock, say early morning in Sunday. The remaining day on Sunday, I will have to spend analyzing the mock. And whenever I identify, okay, I'm not able to answer questions of this topic, go and see that particular topic, see the video, see the formula, and then practice questions from that topic. This part, mocks, basically is a diagnostic test. Think of it like a blood sugar test, okay? If the blood sugar test tells you that blood sugar is high, what do you have to do? You have to do something to like recover, right? So this is the recovery part. You have to see that, okay, do I understand the concept? If not, see the concept video. Do I know how to solve questions? If not, practice from that particular topic. And you keep doing this loop enough, you will have fewer and fewer weaknesses and eventually you will get very good at solving questions. Okay, let's go to the next part, which is the month-wise schedule. So I've given you a lot of information, what is important, what you should do, what you should keep in mind, but you need like a month-wise schedule, right? So this month-wise schedule I have created for somebody who has not taken our course. If you have taken our course, your schedule is fixed for you. We have told you what you have to do. We have told you, okay, do it in this order, attend this live session. So you don't have to worry about it at all. But suppose you are doing this alone. If you are doing self-study, I'll give you one schedule, which according to me is the best way of trying to make the most of the last 4 months that are there. In case you do not have a guide, this is basically your guide to how to study in the last 4 months. In the first month, if I was in your place, what I would focus on is the most important topic, which is arithmetic. So I'd cover everything from arithmetic and I would do 50 questions from each of the arithmetic topic. So from mixtures and solutions, ratio and proportion, averages, percentages, time, speed, distance, profit and loss, simple interest, compound interest, and time and work. Just do a lot of questions from here because you should have a lot of confidence in that each of these sections. And once arithmetic is done, you can start taking marks because arithmetic is like it will be half of your attempt anyway. So if 50% of the portion is done, you can even start immediately after that to start take marks. Then I would say that in the first month, after doing arithmetic, start with quadratic equations. Quadratic equations is basically very formula based. You have to remember some formulas, remember some concepts. Linear equations and quadratic equations, as I mentioned, are the easiest parts of algebra, and you can start with them in the first month itself. This, in addition to that, I would say start with geometry also. A little bit of geometry, a little bit of algebra. You're not covering all of algebra, you're not covering all of geometry. But if I tell you, just do all geometry together, you will struggle. Geometry has, I can roughly divide it based on weightage of questions, 3 parts. Triangles, most important part. Circles, second most important part. The ratio of triangles questions to circles questions would be 3:1 ratio. Triangles questions come more often. And even when questions on circles come, they'll involve some triangle concept also. So I would say triangles is much more important than circles, and circles is more important than the rest of geometry. Rest of geometry includes solids, polygons, quadrilaterals. Then you have what else is there? Coordinate geometry. All of those things, if you consider, the frequency of them being asked is even lesser than that of circles. So this is the order in which you should go because of the number of questions that are asked. Triangles are asked most, you should give it the most effort, you should give it the most time. Circles are second most, give it the second most time. Quadrilaterals, everything else is asked third most, so give it the third most time. So start with some of algebra, some of geometry, so that you do not suddenly feel burdened with all of algebra or all of geometry later. But arithmetic is top priority. In verbal, if 16 questions out of 24 questions are RC, what should be the priority? It has to be RC. Your first priority has to be becoming very good at RC. Now, how do you become very good at RC? See, RC doesn't test your grammar skills, it doesn't test your vocabulary, it tests your comprehension skills. What is comprehension skills? Your ability to read information and understand it. Your ability to comprehend information. So you have to build a reading ability. There are students who have always read. Okay, there are some people who basically love reading. They love reading the newspaper, they love reading articles. They have a interest in reading. For all those people, this will be a cakewalk. But for 90% of the students that I see, in fact, 90% of the people who take CAT, they have zero reading habit. In fact, the way our higher education is there, in engineering or BCom, any higher education, it basically discourages any kind of interest, external interest. And because of that, most of the students don't have any reading habit. They have not read in months. And it shows. It shows in how much time they actually spend, how much comprehension skills they have at the beginning of their preparation. This is the first most important thing that you have to do. You have to build a reading habit. You have to build reading ability. So every single day, I want you to read 2 articles. Where do you read from? So we have a repository of articles. So if you Google search Kraku CAT daily articles, you will get this repository of articles. And from there, I want you to read 2 articles every single day. It's a completely free resource, by the way. Anybody can use it, even if you're not a Kraku student. You have to basically read 2 articles every single day, but don't read it only from the things you like. Some people only read sports, but that will be useless. You have to read from different topics. The reason for that repository is also that you read from different topics so that you have some understanding of everything. You have some economics knowledge, some knowledge of history, some knowledge of music, some knowledge of art. All of those things are not completely foreign to you. So that is the reason why we have created this repository. Make sure that you read 2 articles every single day. Then you have to also attempt 1 RC per day. Where should you do it from? Easy answer, daily target. Make sure you do at least the daily target every single day because that's 1 RC every single day. This is what you have to do as a habit in the first month. LRDI, as I mentioned, these 4 are the most important things that you have to do. Okay, So if these 4 are the most important things that you have to do, you have to practice a lot of these sets. So you have to make sure that you do 5 sets of each of these 4 types. You make sure that you cover these topics in detail. Okay. Make sure you see the representation format for each of this. For each type of set, there is a particular format that you have to follow. For linear arrangement, you have to make sure that you draw lines. So if I was like, say, arranging 5 things in a line, okay, the way I follow or I solve it is I consider, okay, these are the 5 things that are there. Then I'll make vertical cases. Case 1, A, B, C, D, E. Case 2, B, A, D, C, E. So this is a way in which I make cases. I make cases vertically. So this format of how you should draw the diagram, how you should represent information, how you should like make cases, all of this is considered under representation format. You should learn the representation format so that you know exactly how to start solving. A lot of students don't know how to start solving the LR set only. That initial jump that is required is the representation format. Make sure that you know the representation format for each type of arrangement, each type of puzzle, each type of tables and charts. You should be able to read different types of charts, not just the simple line chart, bar chart, but radar charts, bubble charts. Then you have area charts. Any kind of chart is thrown at you, stacked bar charts. You should be able to read that chart and convert it into a table. So for all of this, know the basics, know the representation formats, and solve 5 sets of each type. Okay, now going to the second month. Okay, now basically we'll have to, one more thing that I forgot, sorry, over here is the mocks and sectional part. I put it at the bottom, but this is something that is very important. A lot of people don't want to take mocks at the very beginning of the preparation. If I tell you that, okay, start by taking an exam on the first day, you'll say that, okay, how can you take exam on the first day? I have not prepared anything. I can't write an exam on the very first day. But that is something that you have to do for CAT. This is called a zero prep mock. What is a zero prep mock? That is, before you start your preparation, you give one mock. You will score very badly. Don't ignore the score. But why should you do it? Why should you take a zero prep mock? The whole point of the zero prep mock is that, so in swimming, you have to jump in the water, right? The first jump, you will go below water. You might like inhale some water. It will be like a shock. But that shock is very useful because you immediately know how to actually like come up. You know how not to drown. That shock is of practical value. So over here also, this zero prep mock is going to give you a shock. It is going to tell you that things are difficult. And it is also going to tell you how much आप कितने पानी में हो, you're going to know from the first zero prep mock. And it is very essential that you take it. Why? Because it will tell you immediately what the format is. You will have no more confusion what exactly is asked. You will know exactly what the format is. Secondly, it will tell you what your strengths and weaknesses are. And having that introspection that I am strong in this, I am weak in this, has to be there, because that is going to guide the rest of your preparation. If you know I'm weak in VARC, immediately you know that you have to put more effort over here. You have to make sure that you do this religiously. If you know I'm weak in quant, you know you have to put more effort over here. Because all of that immediate feedback, right, of the zero prep mock will tell you what is important and what is not important. That cannot be replaced. You have to take that mock. Take it before you start your preparation. At the very start of your preparation, take this zero prep mock. It will be, you might feel that, okay, I'm like scoring negative marks in LRDI, what is going on? Don't take the marks to heart. Everybody is bad at LRDI, including me, Maruti, everyone is afraid of LRDI. So don't worry about any of that. If you have not scored well, doesn't matter. The whole point of that mock is basically to make sure that you know how the paper is. Make sure that you know yourself and the paper through that mock. After that, after you have completed arithmetic, once you have completed arithmetic, start taking mocks, okay? You might feel, okay, this is too early to take mocks. I can't take mock before completing the whole portion. Don't wait for that, because it's already August. If you wait till September, we have 20 plus 5 mocks plus 15 sectionals. You will not be able to do all of the mocks and sectionals. So please try to do at least, if not 3 mocks, try to do at least 2 mocks after your arithmetic part is over. And it's not just that you have to take mocks, you have to analyze the mocks. You have to basically sit after the mock and say that, okay, why did I get this question wrong? Why did I skip this question? How to solve this question? You have to basically go and do this deep analysis of what went wrong. Then you will understand, okay, these are the mistakes that I made in this mock. I should not repeat it in the next mock. these are the areas that I'm weak in. I need to either see the concept video and practice, or directly I know the concept, I was not able to implement it under pressure. I just need practice for those parts. So here, the mock is itself not of a lot of value, but the mock plus analysis is of infinite value. So make sure that you do at least 2 mocks in the first month itself. Okay. Then going to the second month, this is basically tier 2 now. We have come to tier 2. So complete algebra over here. Functions are kind of related to inequalities, polynomials. So complete it over here itself. Complete the remaining geometry and start solving questions. Again, the shift has to take place between learning and solving questions. You have to keep solving a mix of arithmetic, mix of algebra, mix of geometry. How do I get this mix of arithmetic, mix of algebra and geometry? We have something which is called as a quant rush. Okay. Quant rush, if you go to our study room, you will see this feature called quant rush. What is quant rush? Quant rush is basically a gamified way of solving. In that you have 3 lives and you have to basically keep solving. Every time you make a mistake in a question, you lose a life. After you make 3 mistakes, the game is over. So keep solving from that, because a lot of people really want to like just keep going to the next level and the next level and the next level, and they want to see how much higher score that they can get. A lot of people are like very competitive, and they are on our leaderboard where they have like scored like very high score, 60-70 questions have been solved, because they enjoy doing that. If you keep doing it, right, just make sure that you in the second month you do a mix of arithmetic, a mix of algebra, and do some of geometry, because it basically will make sure that you have like some practice of the 3 important sections that are there. Okay, for verbal you can start with para summary from the second month. Para summary is the second most important part. It also requires same comprehension skills. It does not require any new skills as such. So start with para summary. There is similar to quant rush, we have VA rush. We don't have rush for LRDI sets or RC sets, because each RC takes 8 minutes, each LRDI takes 15 minutes. So we don't have that right now. But VA questions take 1-2 minutes, quant questions take 2-3 minutes. So because of that, we have quant rush and VA rush. So for para summary, start VA rush and start solving para summary in like 10 questions at least. Try to get a string of 10 questions right in para summary. That game basically will make sure that you solve regularly. Then again, continue with the streak of doing 2 RCs per day and 2 articles per day. Here I'm increasing the level from 1 RC to 2 RC, because here it will take you less time also to read. Because if you read every single day for the first month, the time taken to read the 2 articles per day will reduce. If you feel that, okay, it's taking me a lot of time and the article is like say 3,000 words and all, just try to read the first 1,000 words. That is sufficient. Okay. And again, when you're reading, one important thing that I forgot to tell you is that whenever you're reading, you're not supposed to just read and passively read. No, you're supposed to actively read. So what is active reading? Active reading basically means that whenever you read a paragraph, okay, suppose this is the article, this is one paragraph. The minute I finish reading the paragraph, I'll note down the main point of this paragraph. This main point, you might think that, okay, what will I write? I don't know what is the main point. I don't know how to write main points. It's not a summary. It's not like a grammatically correct sentence. You don't need to like put a lot of effort behind it. You just need to put effort in thinking what is there in the paragraph. What is the author trying to say through this paragraph? What is the most important takeaway of this paragraph? Just write that down in your own language, in your own way. Whatever you think is the most important TLDR version of that paragraph, you have to write it down. What happens is that when you force yourself to write down, right, you're also forcing yourself to think about what you have just read. It's very easy to read without thinking, because it's like a reading part is basically a conversation between the author and the reader, right? The author is talking to you, you as a reader are listening to the author. Now that conversation can be a very engaged conversation. You can be like super engrossed with what the author has to say. Sometimes you find what the author has to say very boring, and then you're half there and half your mind is somewhere else. Now these kind of things happen very often, but if you force yourself to do this, right, you know you have to write down the main point. Suppose you have to write down the minutes of a meeting. You will be much more attentive in that meeting, because you have to write down the minutes of the meeting. You can't zone off in that meeting. So for the same reason, when you're reading also, make sure you write down the main point of each paragraph that you read. Not for the value of the main point itself, because it forces you to not zone out during reading, and you are basically 100% engaged in whatever the author has to say. Okay. This is what I want you to do for verbal. In LRDI, again, now you come to the tier 2. These are the tier 2 sets. You have to do 5 sets of each of the T2 sets, and you have to do 5 sets of the T1 sets again. You should not lose track of what is important. In each second month, we keep revising what we learned in the first month, because what we learned in the first month is of highest value. Okay, let's go to the part. This is not zero prep mock over here. Continue with the mocks and analysis over here. Continue taking 3 mocks. Try to stick to the Dashcat schedule as much as possible, and make sure that after the mock is over, after those 2 hours are over, that's not just the 2-hour commitment. It's actually 2 hours of the mock plus 3 hours of analysis afterwards. You have to go through the mock question by question and see why you got it wrong. Okay. Now coming to the third month. Okay. In the third month, we have to amp up the practice. So let's see. In quant, you have to basically go to the tier 3 and you have to do 30 questions. I'm not asking 50 questions of tier 3. 30 questions are sufficient because it is tier 3. And then you have to do QA rush of the important things. QA rush for quant rush of arithmetic, algebra, and geometry for 30 minutes every single day. You should do it religiously because it will make sure that you know how to solve questions of what is important. In verbal, now we come to the parts which are less important, para completion and OOC and theta parajumbles. Cover the concepts, do 20 questions of each, and continue with what is important, 2 RCs plus VA rush. Here VA rush, consider VA rush of para completion plus para summary. Those two things put more emphasis in VA rush. So in VA rush, you have questions from para completion, para summary, OOC parajumble, theta parajumble. But here in the third month, mostly do para summary and para completion because they are the most important parts of VA. In LRDI, you have, this is the T3 sets. Do the T3 concept coverage, do 5 sets of each type. And again, do not lose track of what is really important. Okay, keep solving question sets from the earlier types and also solve some sets from games and tournaments and sets and Venn diagrams. Those are also important. Then here comes the main thing that you have to do from the third month onwards. Third month is basically October. October, you have to start taking a lot of mocks. And there are 4 weekends, but you should not only rely on weekends, you have to also take midweek sectionals. So 4 mocks, 4 weekends. Every weekend you have to take a mock. You have to analyze the mock thoroughly. After the analysis is done, you have to go to the study room and you have to practice questions. Wherever you identify that I didn't understand how to solve this, you have to practice questions from that topic. And you have to do 4 sectionals every Wednesday, which is the middle of the week. Do like sectional is 40 minutes. I'm sure you can take out time to do one sectional. So whichever is your area of weakness, you have to do that sectional every single Wednesday. Then coming to the last month, which is November. Here, I don't want you to spend any time learning. This is all like pure practice plus test, okay? Mostly test, less practice. But test also you will, if you take like a mock every single day, you will burn out. So you have to basically make sure that you don't burn out also. 4 to 6 mocks plus some sectionals are sufficient. For the remaining part, just solve a lot of questions. I would say that see the revision playlist. Again, in the last month in November, I don't want you to go and see concept videos because it would be pointless to see the 40-minute concept videos for one small concept. In the last month, you have to see revision playlists. We have revision playlists which cover the entire topic in a time-efficient manner. So you see the revision playlist, do the concept check, see the concept video. Only if you feel that I didn't understand the concept at all, then go and see the concept. Otherwise, just rely on revision playlist. And now it is all a game of practice. See, what I would say is that in most of the earlier months, I was saying that, okay, do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, do a little bit of this every single day. But in the 4th month in November, I would say for one day, just do QA. One day, just do VA. One day, just do LRDI. Why? Because I want you to sit for extended periods of time and solve questions. Because I want you to push your stamina. I want you to be able to like not get burnt out from doing quant questions. It should not happen that you're like after 1 hour, you're like, I can't even think of a quant question anymore. So I want you to sit for like 4 or 5 hours at a time and solve quant questions on Monday. It will push your stamina quite a bit. It will really like make you much more confident. It will make you feel that, okay, I'm like a complete beast when it comes to quant. Same with VRC, okay? I want you to do 6 to 8 RCs in one go. The reason why I'm asking for so many RCs in one go is that a lot of people zone out by the 4th RC. By the 4th RC, their mind is giving up. But that should not be the case. You should be able to push through the 4th RC easily. The only way you will go through the 4th RC easily is if you actually push yourself to do 8 RCs. If you do 8 RCs, 6 RCs and 8 RCs, 4th RC will not be a pain for you. So one day just say that I'm going to do verbal only, do 8 RCs on the go and do VA rush for 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That should be sufficient. Then on LRDI day, basically one thing that I will say is that when it comes to LRDI, attempting every single previous year CAT LRDI set is super important. So make sure that you go back and you attempt every single LRDI set from CAT 2017 onwards. Every single LRDI set has to be attempted. In addition to that, try to again do the same thing as we did with RC. Try to solve 6 to 8 sets in one go. What it does is basically this extended practice of sitting for 2-3 hours is that firstly it builds stamina, it builds confidence, it builds the like you get this boredom from doing one thing again and again, right? It removes that boredom because it pushes the barrier at which that boredom is going to come. So you will not be bored at the 3rd RC or the 4th RC because you are used to doing 6 RCs now. You will not be bored after doing the 10th question because you are used to doing 30 questions now. You will not be bored after doing the 2nd LRDI set because you are used to doing 6 LRDI sets now. So that is the point. In the last month, I want you to really push on practice and 4 to 6 mocks. Don't go crazy on the mocks. Try to take mocks every weekend plus some mocks during the middle of the week. But again, a lot of people just go crazy in the last month when it comes to mocks. It is not great. Okay, you should have break between mocks. See, ideally, say this is mock 1, say mock n and mock n plus 1. Okay, there should be at least 3 days in between. Firstly, for you to mentally recover from the earlier mock. Secondly, for you to actually act on whatever insights that you have gotten from a mock. So from this mock, you will get some insights. Okay, you will realize I'm bad at geometry. I'm not able to solve questions from quadrilaterals. Then you have to go to quadrilaterals. You have to see all the formula again. You have to solve like say 50 questions from quadrilaterals. Then you give the next mock. Don't give the mock before you have done the remedial measures. If you have not taken it, don't give the next mock. And for that, it will take you time. So make sure that there is at least a 3 days break between successive mocks. As much as possible, give mocks, analyze mocks, and act on the analysis. So this is the month-wise schedule for preparing for CAT in 4 months. I hope I have transferred all the knowledge that I have built over the last 12 years of teaching CAT. Whatever I know about how to crack the exam, I've been able to translate it to you. I've been able to send it over to you. But I'll just leave you with this. This is an exam which is a skill-based exam. It requires skill, and skill comes through hard work. You have to think of yourself not as a student who is like who has to mug up, who has to remember things. You have to think of yourself as a person like a carpenter, somebody who has made a chair so many times that he is like very smooth at making a chair. The first chair you make is going to be a very bad chair. It is going to wobble. It is not going to be smooth at all. But the 100th chair that you make is going to be a nice chair because your hands are set. You have muscle memory. This is a skill-based exam. You need muscle memory. You need to do these topics again and again and again till you have muscle memory. So I want you to know this before you start your preparation for CAT, that this is not a knowledge-based exam. This is a skill-based exam, and you need a lot of work, lot of hard work, and it's not about intelligence. Intelligence will make the job initially easier, but for you to go the full, the entire distance, you need hours of practice. So put in that hours of practice and you'll not regret it. This is me signing off. I wish all of you the best of luck, and I hope all of you crack CAT 2026.